As Annette said, I'm David. I'm a digital marketing specialist at ESSSuper. Sorry. We're going to have a good look at what's driving digital change within the superannuation industry, what we as a fund are doing about that. We'll take a look at one of our projects that we worked on with Elcom to deliver on this, and that was rebuilding our public website, which went live in April this year. We'll take a look at the results we're starting to see out of our digital strategy as well. Firstly, a little bit about me. I've been in an online role for about a decade now, and I've been working in the super space for about 5 years, and I've been at ESSSuper for 18 months, or just over 18 months. So who is ESSSuper? Well, ESS, it stands for Emergency Services and State Super. So naturally, we look after superannuation for older employees of the state or emergency services workers like your paramedics or your ambos and fireys. We've got about 160,000 odd accounts, and they're spread across 3 key user groups. We've got an older cohort of pension members or people that are on our payroll, and we've also got those older state super members that I talked about and the emergency services guys as well. Our members are among the most satisfied, or the most satisfied superannuation members in Australia, which is a big thumbs up for us and a really nice place to be on top of the podium. But like all super funds, we've got some really important key challenges around growth and retention. If you're not increasing your member base and increasing your funds under management, then you're not maintaining or achieving a scale that allows you to remain competitive. And obviously, as we go throughout our lives and we amass this pool of retirement savings, at some point we decide we've had enough of work and we switch into a spending phase, or we switch into what we call post-retirement. And so naturally that's a key retention point for us. We want to retain these members into our products once they reach that key decision point. From a digital perspective, we know that if members engage with us in our online environment, so through our website and through Members Online, which is our online account portal, or NetBank for your super, we know that when they reach that retirement decision point, they're more likely to stay with us as a fund. So my role is about increasing that channel adoption and more deeply integrating the digital channel into our service mix as well. So it's pretty exciting, and it kind of wraps up what we spoke about today. So it was interesting to hear George actually talk about, you remember he had that cone and the circles of influence. I'd say we very much operate around that blue line, maybe a little bit of the green line. And we do that through this strategy, which I'll touch on later, but ultimately we've got 4 themes, 12 imperatives, 30 recommendations, and 100 action items that we're looking to put on the board before the end of 2016. We're partway through that, 18 months in actually, coincides with me starting, where the first core project's been delivered, which was the public website, and there's a series of BAU changes, but I'll come back to the strategy in a bit. So within the superannuation industry, what's really driving digital change? Is there anyone here from Deloitte? I kind of hope not. So excellent. I borrowed this from them back in, well, it's from a presentation I saw back in February 2014. George spoke about disruption amongst the education sector. Well, we're the green dot, the financial services industry in Australia. So this slide represents all of the different industries that make up the Australian economy, and across the horizontal line, the time frame of digital disruption, and the vertical axis, the amount of disruption. So we're what's called a short fuse big bang, or we're operating in a space that's short fuse big bang. So that's pretty scary, it's pretty exciting, it's a great place to be. But what's really behind all of this change? Why are we short fuse big bang? Well, I mean, Tim talked a little bit about the social, local, mobile and big data business models that are out there, and they're out there to create new ways of operating and new ways of competing because consumer preferences are changing. But within the super space, there's another thing up there on the screen that you might be able to see. $2 trillion, that's a hell of a lot of money. And naturally, a lot of money attracts the attention of some other stakeholders. So you might have seen super in the media a lot over the last few years. It gets a lot of regulatory attention. In fact, just as early as, 28th of July, we got ASIC class order relief to be able to default people into digital communications for certain communication types. A lot of people in this room would kill to be able to do that and get those cost efficiencies. So we're quite kind of lucky. So my role is about maximising how we do that, or how we use those opportunities. Obviously, there's $2 trillion attracts the attention of a lot of competitors. There's a lot of players in the wealth management space, not just superannuation companies. For instance, the banks have taken a good look at super and said, well, retirement savings, hey, we can do that. Financial planning, yeah, we can do that too. And unlike super, which is quite a passive product, and I wasn't going to do this, but I think I will, I might get everyone to stand up because this is kind of fun, and just to keep you all awake. Now, stay standing if you've logged into NetBank on your smartphone or your online banking app on your smartphone in the last month. Yep, right, as we guessed. Now, stay standing if you logged into your super in the last month on your smartphone. Right, case in point. Now, as an industry, we face an interesting competitive pressure within the digital space around engagement. You guys use NetBank on your phone all the time, pay bills, etc. And the banks are starting to position their products right alongside your credit cards, home loans and things. So we really feel this within the super space. There's another really interesting thing happening in the Australian economy at the moment. I think in 2010 there was about 36% of the wealth was controlled by Gen X and Gen Y. So people under the age of about 45 or whatever the current definition of Gen X is. But by 2030, which is just 15 years away, that's going to double and it'll be 70 to 75% of the wealth will be controlled by Gen X and Gen Y. So those guys that grew up with computers in their households, computers in the workplace, and they also probably have had super in the workplace since they started, so their retirement savings are going to be pretty hefty as well. So how does this all culminate together to create our operating environment from a digital perspective? Well, I mentioned before we've got 3 user groups. One of them's represented up on the screen, our older state super members. This lovely lady up here is a teacher. She's approaching retirement. She's got a large pool of savings wealth that she's amassed across a lifetime of working, and she's about to make that decision about transitioning into retirement or retiring. So naturally it's about engaging with her in that digital channel and getting that channel adoption, so when she reaches that key retirement decision point, we're more likely to retain her, as I said before. On the flip side, we've got these guys. Our emergency services schemes are the only open scheme that we run, so we've got a limited growth opportunity because we've got this closed membership. These guys are our future, and these two particular people here, they're in that building wealth phase. So we definitely want to be engaging with them in digital ways. They definitely do banking, just like most of you in the room, but like most of you in the room, I highly doubt they've logged into their super fund on their smartphone in, the last probably 5 years. So we start to see this correlation between the macro landscape or our competitive landscape and what we as a fund are seeing across 2 of our key segments. So again, it's an exciting place to be. So we decided we needed to deal with this digital disruption that the super industry was feeling, and like most companies, we needed a strategy or a way to deal with that because we operate on that blue line within the cone. So I don't know if any of you have a strategy that can be articulated this way, but if you don't, I really suggest maybe making that the first part of your digital transformation journey. So our strategy is around 4 themes, which you can see up on the board there. There's 12 imperatives, 30 action items, and 30 recommendations and 100 action items that we're going to put on the board before the end of 2016. What's really important about that is it means that I can communicate right up at a board and exec level and talk about grandiose ideologies around communicating and engaging with people in digital ways so that we empower them and get this operating efficiency and reduce our cost base. But on the flip side, we can also set work plans around the 100 action items that we're going to deliver. We can establish KPIs and make sure that some of this strategy actually gets put into place. But really importantly, that 100 action items paints a picture of what we're not going to do as well, because as you'll know, there's a lot of different opportunities in the digital space and we're all faced with that. And it's kind of important sometimes to define what you're not going to chase. So 18 months ago, this is what we had. It's a screenshot off a legacy site, so there's a few broken links here and things, but ultimately you get the idea. It's not terrible, it's not great. But we decided if we're going to really engage with our users, and particularly through the website, with being such an important communication tool, we're going to empower them to transact so that we can become more efficient, then we better do something with our front door. It's that cornerstone of your communication strategy, the website, and it's the way that you stitch together so much of your other e-communication, so your social media posts or your e-coms. But for us, from a transactional perspective, the website's also the jump-off point for our members' online self-service environment. So that's that channel adoption that I spoke about before. So we thought this is a great place to start with getting those action items on the board. And there's another reason that we chose to start with the website that I also think is really interesting and worth mentioning, and that's because it is such a visual medium. If we're going to deal with our front door and make a statement to our members about where we're going within the digital channel, it also makes a statement internally about where we're going. And so that provides a great way to bring your staff or your other stakeholders along on this digital change journey that you're embarking on. So we set some objectives, as you do around these things. There was a whole bunch of secondary ones, but primarily we were going to completely visually redesign it. We had a new brand and we needed to make sure we got this strong alignment across all of our assets. We had, and even now when I go back and look at the old website, I still find content I didn't know was there. We had something like 270 pages, some of which hadn't been updated since they went live in 2010, and it was just a bit of a mess. We also had a lot of data about why people were coming to the site and where they were ultimately ending up, so what they were trying to achieve. And some of those pathways that they were taking were kind of convoluted. So we wanted to streamline this navigation or the way those users were achieving their objectives on the site. Seminars for us, so coming along and hearing someone talk about planning for retirement or boosting super or even Centrelink, it's a key part of our broader engagement strategy. Previously, if you wanted to book into one of those seminars, you had to pick up the phone, call our call centre, and they would register you over the phone. So it was driving a lot of low-value phone calls into the helpline as well. So we wanted to deal with that and shift that process online for users. So we already had the Elcom CMS in place, and it stacked up pretty well against what we were going to do. And we'd also worked with this our agency that had sort of helped us formulate our digital strategy and put our new brand into practice. So we felt by working with the two vendors, we could really get the quality that we were after. Not only would we be able to translate our strategy into a powerful user experience, but we'd also be able to manage that really effectively if it was built out by Elcom on their own product. So that was the approach that we took. And we went from this website that we saw before to this. This went live in April this year. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. We used the carousel module from the CMS to represent our positioning. The whole thing's larger, cleaner, more modern aesthetic, so we're pretty happy with that. I'll talk about responsive in a minute. Members online is represented very strongly, and we've started to use data and the data or the usage behaviours that we saw by looking at our data to try and put some structure around the homepage and things. We're embedding our calls to action alongside key content. So for this superannuation member, there's a promo here for boosting their super. We also introduced a mega menu, and we wanted to help users understand when they were navigating through the menu structures what they might find in a in a section. So the example there, super basics. And you'll have to excuse me, I stitched this together with screenshots because I wasn't sure what technology we'd had, but we've put some descriptors around some of our sections as well, and we've reduced the navigational choices that users had as well. So we're lucky as marketers, aren't we, or as digital people, because we've got access to all of this this wealth of historical site analytics or data about e-com open rates and things. So you can use all of that data to make decisions about navigational hierarchies or key links, or in our case, homepage tabs, or even the forms that fit under our common forms and transactions drop down there. Super's very much still driven by the paper form at this point in time, and we're working on that. Search was a bit of a mess on the old site, probably because of all that legacy content. So we asked Elcom to really help us address that. So Tim showed this off before. We've got suggestive search or predictive search. So as a user types, it begins to recommend appropriate results. And we use that best bets function that was also spoken about to make sure we're serving up probably the content that's best going to address the search query if we don't have something in place. And again, we use data to make those decisions about which ones we're going to try and address. You might have noticed news features quite heavily on the homepage. Research sort of told us that members trust us and want us to be informing and engaging them with relevant content at particular times of year. So news provides a great opportunity for us to do that. And we use taxonomy within the CMS. Everyone's familiar with taxonomy, tagging content, to serve up different content in different sections of the site, as you can see from that example there. Another example is we can serve up video content of our latest market commentary alongside investment results as well. It's actually interesting as a marketing team, by making news prominent, we forced ourselves to have to be looking for stories and looking for relevant content to surface at different times of year. So there was a bit of a backhanded play there as well. And by using taxonomy, it means we can stitch together a targeted e-com, if we need to, using that content library that we've had compliance review and legal review and had signed off. So we're ready to go. Even when we're producing, say, a printed newsletter in 6 months' time, we can look back at the catalogue of articles and we can almost pull it together with very little effort. So we've streamlined some of our work practices as well. So we went for fully responsive design. So we're responsive across 4 breakpoints. We've got a large desktop like your Apple screens and things, and a smaller or more regular desktop, which is what you're looking at there, and also different breakpoints across tablet and mobile as well. So why did we use a responsive design approach instead of going for something like a dedicated mobile offering? Well, I think Tim or someone mentioned it before, but if you think back, Super's a passive product. So when you guys choose to engage with your super funds, or when our members choose to engage with us, we wanted to make sure that they could do whatever it is that they wanted to do, irrespective of the device they were on when they chose to do that. And we've got limited resources to make that happen. So this provides a really great way for us to have that full-featured experience with a friendly UX on whatever device. I mentioned seminars being a key component of our broader engagement strategy in this online seminar booking. So we use the event management module in Ilcom really heavily. We've got a whole catalogue of events in there, and they're all controlled by taxonomy to allow users to filter. So for example, an emergency services worker living in Geelong has these 2 seminars coming up in November. And again, that lets us pull together those targeted e-coms around events. So something, if you take an e-commerce approach, it's like pitching a pair of shoes for an under 40s male versus pitching a jacket for a over 60 female. We can pitch appropriate seminars to appropriate data segments. So how has all of this sort of come together for us? Well, I mean, if you look at the headline stats, not much really changed, did it? I mean, same number of pages per session, in fact, slightly less. Perhaps we're better at serving up information in a more streamlined way. Similar bounce rate, same average session duration. A lot more visits, though. It's probably driven by this the online event booking and us heavily promoting that. There's also some softer metrics as well. We've reached competitive parity. We're pretty happy with the way that our website looks. We've got the responsive design that we set out to achieve. And subsequent research tells us that our members are even more satisfied with the website that we've got. But if we drill down into a few harder metrics, it's really interesting to note in those extra site visits, we've had a nearly 100% increase in mobile visits. So mobile and tablet now accounts for about 25% of our total traffic. And they're looking around, they're getting similar pages per session. There's a slightly higher bounce rate there, which I can talk through just quickly. Because we have a separate online service portal, when someone goes to that portal, it's recorded as a bounce in this particular analytics engine. So we promote through email a lot of things like login to do this, and so we know 40% of our emails open on a mobile phone, so that probably explains the bounce rate. Interestingly for us, and I'm not sure if it's the same for everyone in the room, but mobile's all about Apple and tablets is all about iPad. Everything else just doesn't matter to us. Desktop visits are heavily driven by our over 55s, and we see the mobile visits being driven by a broad age group from those aged about 25 right through to 64. So that's an interesting takeaway, and I expect that mobile space to increase significantly for us.
Sorry, David, I just missed the statistic there. Was that 40% of email came from mobile phones?
Yeah, we see, open rates, we see very, very strong open rates off mobiles, yeah, upwards of 40%. We did a campaign recently. It was a time-triggered call to action, and it was up over 70% of those emails were open on a mobile phone, which is pretty cool. So back then it was all about coming to the site and reviewing investment performance, perhaps obtaining a form or contact details, and maybe you went and had a look at some of our engagement tools like calculators, or ran a search, or found the elusive PDF seminar schedule so that you could contact us and register. But now it's completely flipped around. Seminars being a key component of our engagement strategy are now probably the most common reason that users are coming to the site. It's still all about investment performance, and it probably always will be in the super space. It's still about forms. Unfortunately, we're very paper-based. But interestingly, we've seen our planning for retirement content really take a lift, and that's being driven by those homepage tabs. You might remember we had super, advice, retirement. So we've changed the way people are engaging with our content. We see news readership is up 4 times, so bringing it to the forefront really did have a strong impact for us. And we've seen over 100% more visits to our calculators or our online tools, which is also an important engagement tool for us. So just to put some more context on what else is in the program, we implemented Google Tag Manager when we released the site. So for those that don't know, Google Tag Manager is a kind of a newish way that you can implement Google Analytics. It gives you a lot more control as a marketer to deploy things. And you can set tags to fire on all pages, for example, so you don't have to make sure that every single link has every single tag in it that you need to fire. Check it out if you haven't already, it's really good. We also changed some of the email tools that we use so that we could get campaigns out the door faster and so that they also match the style of the site and were fully responsive and we could get the reporting that we needed. So overall, this has given us this better campaign capability end to end. So just to kind of tie all this together around where we are competitively, our strategy and how we put that down on a day-to-day basis, let's take a look at our seminar booking. So obviously we use data to segment our seminars into appropriate target groups, and we use the taxonomies to produce taxonomy on the site to produce the links that we're going to put in those e-coms. We send out the e-coms with the tailored links. People click back to the website and they don't have to call that, and they're not calling. So it's not big numbers, but I don't know if you can see there, we've had about 1,067 in that time period self-registrations into our seminar program, but importantly, over 80% of those came directly from an email. So that means I can turn around and say to the business that I've saved 879 phone calls through to our call centre that were of a lower value, so freed up that headcount to deal with higher value calls or questions about actually retiring or growing super. So that's a really important metric for us. So it's only it's a small example, but it really does illustrate how we're using our website and using these digital tools that we've built with our partners like Elcom to deliver on this strategy. And you can talk about it from the action items of allowing a user to book into a seminar online right up into the board level around this framework or this strategic framework. So we're using digital channels to communicate with our members and engage them around our seminar program. We've empowered them to self-book and we've gained that service efficiency. And that's a really positive story for the business. So just to quickly wrap this up, because I'm a little conscious of time, super's a short fuse, big bang industry. There's a $2 trillion fund pool that's creating this environment for change. We've got a focused strategy on how we're dealing with that. And it's quite important with the strategy that we've also defined what's not in there by being so specific. The program delivery is underway and we took a look at the website. And next for us, well, I mentioned right at the start that it's all about getting channel adoption and further integrating digital into our service environment. Since we started this program of change around this strategy, we've seen a 50% increase in 18 months in our online channel adoption. And so the next challenge for us is dealing with that account service portal to put that engagement into, or empower users that have chosen to engage and process those transactions in a straight-through way that you can do in digital to further drive that operating efficiency that we're looking to get out of the site. So that's all from me. All right, excellent. Thanks, guys.